Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. I am super excited for our guest today. He's a seasoned triathlete, an accomplished executive in management, accounting, real estate. He's the mastermind behind a new mobile app designed to revolutionize the way triathlons are planned and managed. And I have used it. Please welcome the founder of RaceDay, Bill Hoolihan. Welcome, Bill.
Wow, my head's growing already. You relax.
Well, as you know, we love talking about endurance and the endurance mindset. So, Bill, I want to know, how has your endurance mindset impacted your life unexpectedly?
A great question. It impacted my life several different ways. I don't know if you want my story, but about 10 years ago, I was, overweight and not, working out, whatnot. And I slowly got into it, and it greatly affected my health in a very positive way. And then it affected my lifestyle in a very positive way. I just started waking up earlier, became more disciplined, but also approached life a little bit differently than I had before. And I found that I loved associating with triathletes, and I love being at races. And I love the energy, and I love the people, and the lifestyle, and the training. And then it evolved to my involvement with a Facebook group called Pathetic Triathletes, which I didn't see coming. And it evolved into my app, which I didn't see coming. So, about 10 years ago, my life took a 90-degree or 180-degree change for the positive. And, I'm blessed every day that I get to do this. It's not a full-time living yet, but I'd like it to be. But nevertheless, it's impacted me, in a very, very positive way.
Was there something specific 10 years ago that brightened the light bulb or made you turn the corner? Or
Well, I'm a little bit older than you, and I was middle-aged and been married for a while and was sedentary, and I just got fed up. And I frankly and I had a son who was a little bit overweight, and we just got fed up and we started going to Orange Theory. And one class killed us, but months later we were doing 3 and 4 classes a week, and we needed more. And it sort of surprised me. And I had done a couple of tries in the late 80s, and they were short distances. But I said, let's try it again. So I did a couple of duathlons and loved it. I did it with a mountain bike. And to this day, Blue Thunder's a legend for our triathlon course down here. I was screaming down a bridge at 8 miles an hour, and a bunch of guys yelled out, "Go Blue Thunder, go!" And still cracks me up. I still have that bike. But that's how it started, and it just keeps evolving. And to date, I just love being involved. I took a course several months ago related to my startup app. It was an innovative course. An instructor came in and said, well, what's your why? And if it's about money, I'd like you to leave the class now. I was like, whoa, this is serious. But it made me look inward. And my why is, I like to see people finish races. I'm a backup packer, but I'm a cheerleader, and I know I'm going to finish. I'm not going to win, but I love cheering on people who may not, have it in them to finish or think they can't. And they beat me all the time. So I just love being involved in the community, and I love seeing people doing things they didn't think they could. Because after all, it's, left, right, repeat. You can't get away from that.
that's exactly right. And thank you for your support. I'm a back of the packer as well. In fact, I was just talking to my triathlon coach a few days ago. So I did Copenhagen last weekend,
Right.
and I come out of the water pretty strong. And then like 1,300 athletes passed me on the bike. And I'm like, why am I so slow on the bike? And then she basically told me it was my training plan, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Bill, I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper of this energy you have of seeing people accomplish things that are what they thought were beyond their capability, or finishing races. Have you had that sort of innate sense all your life, or was it born somewhere at some point in time?
It's funny. I've never really thought about it, but I've always been a proponent of the underdog. And physically, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5", I'm 240. I've always been bigger than most. And I've always, in college or whatnot, if there was ever somebody who didn't think they could do something, I felt like I owed it to them to help. Things came easy or to me, athletically and maybe even academically. I've been blessed. And so I do like helping people. I do like teaching. I found out that I'm a pretty good teacher at whether it be accounting or race day or whatnot. I like being in front of people and I like helping. And it's an energy. I'm not a rock star, but I've heard rock stars say, in front of an audience, they feed off that energy. And I get that in a classroom. I get that, you know, I can tell you a kind of a funny story, and it meant a lot to me. I was warming up for a try in Miami, and the water was kind of dark, and I was swimming around, and the ladies' swimways had already taken off, and I don't know, I'm just flopping around, and I saw a young lady going the wrong way. I was like, well, that's odd. So I swam over to her and I said, the race is, the other direction. And she's sobbing now. She's really crying. And I said, well, what's wrong? She goes, it's dark. I said, all right, it's dark. I said, well, what's really wrong? She says, I can't see the bottom. I can't see the black stripe. So she trained in the pool. And I love the ocean. I'd rather be in the ocean. I said, well, I promise you there's a bottom. And I said, listen, if I swim with you, would you turn around? Because you've spent 6 months training. So I swam with her, and I promptly got DNF because my chip went over the wrong thing at the wrong time. And she took off. I never saw her again. But I felt good. I'd rather finish. I'm not going to win that race. I don't care. Race directors don't care. And so I just felt really good that I could help somebody out. All they needed was just a little push, you know?
Well, that's a great story. I'd love to know, and you mentioned this earlier about how your endurance mindset has completely sort of changed your approach to life, or you're approaching life differently. Can you talk a little bit more about what other aspects of your life you've seen your endurance training, this passion for the sport, the passion for the community manifest in other ways?
What can give you a little bit more discipline in my work? I'm self-employed. I can obviously go off in different tangents, but you know, you can't do some of the tries, particularly the half Ironmans and Ironman distances willy-nilly. You need a little bit of discipline there. Um, it also, again, your friends and family get encouraged by it. They start to do things and make subtle changes like, well, if Bill can do it, I can do it. And so it's just sort of it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's not as hard as people think. Again, it's left, right, repeat. And it's really, I don't find it to be so much as like, pushing yourself through the pain and this, that. It's just time. And we all have time, and we all can find a couple of hours here and there. But if it's 15 hours a week, so be it. But I'm not, again, I'm not going to win the race. So I don't have to push through barriers. I just have to get out there and do it.
Okay. You mentioned time management. When you're in the thick of training, are there any secrets to your time management?
That's a generous term for me. Um, yeah, I don't know if I have, I'm not a coach. I'm not a pro. I'm an average Joe. I'm a backup packer, like you said. But, one of my tricks is, obviously to get ready the night before. Um, just don't get caught up in the minutia. It's one of the things I love about my Facebook group, the Pathetic Triathletes. You can overthink the sport to death, but there's nothing better than just getting out there and doing it. And so, if it's a little cloudy or it's a little that, you just strap on your shoes, you put on your hat, and you go. And the other thing, and I've even heard pros say this, the most important thing is consistency. You just can't, kill it twice a week and go, oh, I did my 50 miler or my 100 miler. And then no, it's better to be out there every day doing something than crushing it, once or twice a week, in my opinion, for me.
So jumping into the Facebook group, was the inspiration to start that similar to what you've just been sharing with us, that it's a way in which others can help others achieve things
It,
that they thought were impossible?
yeah, because there was nothing. there was nothing out there like it. And when I got involved, I got involved, a year or two after it was founded, and we had 20 or 24,000 members. This is 5 or 6 years ago. We're at 90,000. We're going to cross 90,000 this week. It is growing by leaps and bounds. And I love the stories. I love the stories, and they're everywhere from people beating alcoholism to people coming from horrible backgrounds, from people who didn't believe in themselves or overweight to we've got professional. I name them. There's a lot of names in our group, and so, but it's the lighter side of try. Of course, we can talk about thresholds and power and you name it, anaerobic, aerobic training, but it's also life. Like, hey, I've got 2 kids. How do I handle it? I'm losing my mind. And 50 people will chip in and say, look, we got you. We got your back. Here's what we do. And it's really kind of, a support group, but not just for training, but for life in general. It's a tough world out there. And it's nice to know, somebody's got your back. And if they're not supportive, and if they're, whatever, mean or whatever, I mean, they're gone in an instant. So I've got in my mind 90,000 positive people lifting your wings when you're a little bit down.
I was on your site, on that group probably 2 months ago, and one of the things I was struggling with is when I go on my long runs, I have to carry my car. So I drive to a park that's
Right.
next to a trail, and then I do like a 6 mile out and back so I can refresh with water and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And one of the things I always struggle with is my key to the car. And I usually zip it into my shorts, and then it's covered in sweat and it's awkward and it's banging against something else. So I posted on that group, hey, how does everybody else solve for this problem? And one person wrote back and goes, I would go and bought a master lockbox, and I connect it to the hinge of my car. And then I put the key into that. And I was
Sure.
like, well, that's brilliant. So of
Yeah.
course I did that. But of course the key is a fob. And so now the fob is still close to the door. So you still can get in it and drive away if you wanted. But
That's
it was a good example of how that community
right.
will very quickly offer their experiences in a way that's non-judgmental.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, and they're everywhere. We even had a little meeting this morning. Even I love the bike questions. I'm no technician on a bike, but people will post, I've got a 7 millimeter hex nut, and is it compatible with the 14.3 TRW from XKY? I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? I don't get 20 answers. It's like these guys are like pro bike mechanics telling them where to find it, how to do it. I'm like, well, that's fabulous. I certainly wouldn't know. And I go on YouTube. You don't have to. You can go on the Pathetics, and they will reach out and do good things for you. Several years ago, Facebook reached out to me, and this is really kind of cool. Facebook, can't grow any more users. So Facebook's future growth is by groups, by people joining them and interacting. And they saw my group interacted 300,000 times per month. That was off the charts for them. And I had my own little contact there, and they wanted to know what's the secret sauce. And I never really could tell them, because it's a triathlon thing. It's you're addicted, in a positive way to a positive sport, and you want to interact. But they eventually did a commercial on us. So if you end up on YouTube and type in pathetic triathletes, you'll see a 15-second YouTube commercial advancing our group. And it's kind of funny. It has to do with biking, but I won't ruin the ending. It's kind of silly.
Yeah, and we'll include a link to that in our show notes for sure. Bill, I'm curious, to staying on the Facebook and social media, how have you seen it change over the last 6 years?
Ooh, huge, particularly in terms of Facebook itself. My group used to be a little bit out there. I'm not going to say X-rated, but I am going to say R-rated. And they, and so we would leave stuff. If it was adult humor related to try, we would leave it, particularly if it was funny. And I was kind of surprised. I've got some real good comedians in the group, but Facebook really kind of, I think, overreached. And so you could say something that really is innocuous and not, wrong or socially wrong, and they either delete it or squash it. So they've kind of toned my group down. but it hasn't hurt the group. Funny is funny in my opinion. Um, so Facebook in itself has really kind of like changed the game, and my membership has changed along with it. Um, in terms of, the other social media, I'm on them, but I'm not gifted at Instagram or TikTok or any of the others. I need to be, but I'm just not. There's only so much time in a day. So Facebook has definitely changed over the years, but it hasn't stopped us. And that I suspect they're helping us grow because they'll suggest my group to other triathletes. And like I said, we're adding 400 a week. I had to go out to the group and say, I need help. Who can help me? And I have two people helping me add people, because you have to be careful who you let in, because there's bots and spammers. There's all kind of crazy people out there, but we're pretty good at keeping it, clean.
Let's change gears a little bit and talk about RaceDay.
Okay.
And can you give the audience sort of a high level view of the app? And then after that, I'd love to talk about the story of how you came up with the inspiration.
It's a bad day.
Some of the what are some of the bumpy parts of the road that you've had to go
Okay.
over?
Yeah, love to. And before we move on to that, I just want to say, with the Facebook group, we had a little meeting today. We are the largest tri club in America. We have 90,000 members, and Ironman recognizes us as a tri club. I'm having difficulty, and so you get benefits by being a tri club member at Ironman. You get early registration, you get some discounts, you get meetup points at races. And I've done a poor job of passing that on to my members. And so we basically appointed a fellow who's going to be the point of contact, so we can start to explore the tri club aspects of being apathetic, because many people aren't in clubs, many people are, but again, so that was a positive note that we had a little Zoom call this morning.
That's all. In fact, I was picking up my bib for this past race, and it had my local DC Tri Club on my bib, and I haven't done something with them in 10 years, but it's what's on my profile. So to your point, maybe it's time for me to update my profile and put pathetics on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so wait a few days, you'll get, we're going to send out some notices of what, and Ironman obviously changes, Ironman is around the corner from me. They're in Tampa. I'm in Miami. I used to go over there once a year and meet with everybody, but every year they change people. So I had to start all over again. So I'm not sure what the rules are anymore, because they change as fast as Facebook changes. But I think it's important that, we exercise our strength. We're 90,000 strong.
That's amazing.
At one point, I wanted to offer auto insurance. Imagine our buying power. Well, I learned there's different rules in different states, and I should probably leave that alone and not get in trouble.
A true entrepreneur.
Well, I'm trying to help, RaceDay. So thank you for asking about that. That's my love child. That's my baby. So the RaceDay is an app. Every coach says you need a race plan for your race, but there are no apps out there to help you generate that race plan. And even if you ask the coaches, well, what does it look like? Every coach is going to have a different idea. And if they say, if you ask for a template, they say, well, you draft your own and I'll edit it. And so I thought there was a need for a race planning software package, and I frankly invented it. The birth of it was I was doing the Augusta half Ironman, and I'm good with numbers. I'm a CPA. I'm good with spreadsheets. And I was just trying to figure out my nutrition and where I wanted to stop on the bike and where I would probably run out of water and this and that. And I sat there and I couldn't figure it out. I was getting, I was losing my mind. I had a laptop out. I had spreadsheets going. I didn't sleep. I was screwy. So I said, there's got to be a better way. And so I kind of, designed RaceDay. And it has, three primary pillars, I call them. And the first is your pacing. So you identify how fast you swim, bike, and run, how fast you intend to get through your transitions, and the time of days that you're going to start. And that's not revolutionary, but it tells the app where you're at and which event you're at during the time of the day, which is important. Then the next thing I did is I asked you, what is your hourly consumption for your nutrients? How much water do you need an hour? How much salt? How many calories? Because it's hard to add up your packages of your nutrition. Meaning, if you say I need, I don't know, 3,000 milligrams of salt, you have to go in there and add up all the little things you're taking, your goo gels, your Cliff Bars, your Tailwinds, your whatever. And so the way I do that is once you identify the goals, your goals, you then pick your products that you intend on using. And so behind the scenes, RaceDay adds up all those nutritional labels and compares that to your goals and says, hey, you're either under or over that nutrient category. And so what's really interesting is you could be consuming way too much caffeine because that's sort of like a hidden ingredient, or you could be under salted, I call it. And so it really helps you dial in your nutrition, particularly on the longer races. Then the third pillar is the weather. People totally underestimate the effect of weather on the race. Copenhagen, I can't even imagine what you went through, but it's got to be different than Virginia. And so what I do is I merge that with your nutrition and your timing. So I show you the wind speed, the wind direction, the temperature, the humidity, and the rain chance in 15-minute increments across your race. So you could come out of the water and it's cool, but it could be blazing hot by the time you're running. And so if you're not used to that environment, it allows you to look at it and say, whoa, it's going to be a lot hotter. I probably need more water and more salt. So now you can go back into your nutrition plan and up your hourly usage and add a couple more goos or gels or base salts or whatever you're using. So it's the combination of those three, your pacing, your nutrition, and your weather that gives you, I think, a really fantastic race plan.
And then it ultimately spits out a beautiful PDF that you could then hand to your coach and say, hey, am I on point? Am I off point? What adjustments should we make?
Exactly. We give you a PDF, we also give you a link, and they're identical, except the link is dynamic. So if your coach has that link, they could always look at your plan. Sort of like my way to create a multi-user version of it. Or you can share it with friends, or whatever. So you're right. It's designed to be shared with possibly someone who knows more than you.
So I'm curious, Bill, did you have a technology background or a software development background prior to getting into this?
It's funny. When I was a CPA, computer auditing has just sort of been invented, and there was like 30 of us standing in a row, like, who wants to be the computer auditor? And 29 people stepped backwards. I'm like, what just happened? So, I'm technically, I didn't write the code. Let's put it that way. But I know what we can and can't do, and I know what's reasonable. So I think I'm pretty good at designing, and I have a crew in Atlanta who handles the coding. And so they keep me current. But my technology background, probably not great any more than yours, but I'm also really dogged and I'll stay up all night if I'm onto something. Particularly creating our food database, that was a work of art. That took a lot of time and requires a lot of time continually.
I'd be interested in digging in a little bit deeper on the app development, right? Because us entrepreneurs, we tend to have new ideas every 15 minutes, right? And so what really drove you over the edge from, hey, this is a good idea, I'm going to put it on the back burner, to picking up the phone and finding a developer to help sort of conceptualize the app and then take it one step further, and then ultimately, well, I'll stop there for my next question.
Yeah. Well, two things occurred because I've got a vivid imagination, and one thing that helped me, I ride in an area called Homestead, which is a rural area of South Florida. It's hotter than hell, frankly. And one day I was hallucinating, riding along, and I said, boy, I wonder if this is like the lava fields in Kona. I hear it's really hot, humid, and I was just like, boy, if I was on that race, I would love to know what the temperature, what the weather is, for the various legs of that race. Hey, maybe what I can do, and I'm getting crazy. if I shipped out 10 portable weather stations to a race course and put them at various stages on the course, both run and bike, and swimming would be harder, and then have meteorological students monitor these for 5 to 10 days prior to the race, I wonder if people would like that data. You've already spent $1,000 on the race, 20 grand in training, and 1,000, you spent a fortune. Maybe you'd pay $100 or $500 for the weather data for your race course. Well, that proved to be, somewhat difficult, but that was sort of like the beginning of RaceDay. But I just felt that, one, there was a need for it. And what I've also found is, it combines so many different things: nutrition, pacing, weather. And I've got I've got checklists in there. I've got a 200 item checklist. It's the best I've ever seen. And it kind of throws people off because, when you load Word, you know what Word's going to do. When you load Excel or Training Peaks or whatever, it's very focused. Mine grabs things from all over the place, which just makes it, I hate the term, but it makes it kind of like a unicorn. It's pretty special. And so it's kind of a learning curve. I need to teach people that it exists, not how to use it. It's really intuitive, but I need to show people that a race plan software exists and it's fairly easy to use. And I have to mention it. It's free.
Well, speaking of where it's going, I know it's available mobile app and iPad. Is it desktop friendly?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So right now we're in both stores, both Apple and Google stores. Google just changed some rules on us, so we're down for a couple of days at the Play. They call it the Play Store. So we're down there for a couple of days, but it's identical. We'll be up in a few days. The desktop, it's a whole different set of code, believe it or not. And so I didn't know that, but there's converters. There's the technology changes every day, and the crazy thing is, we built this thing and we're trying to get, let's say, a 5 or 10% market share. And we believe there's 2 million triathletes in the world. So if I've got, 500 to 100,000 users, I'd be very happy. There's 8 million marathoners in the world. And my app works for marathons too. We delete the swim and the bike. And now you have pretty much a marathon app. And so my programmers took it on themselves. They didn't even ask me. And they said they've been working on the marathon version for a couple of months, and we hope to release that, relatively soon. But the whole platform that it's built on is different than RaceDay. And so they invoked, technology to convert the prior code into the new code. And, again, I'm not an expert in it, but it changes so quickly that it's, fascinating. And it's also, incredibly powerful.
And we'll include links to the apps on our show notes for sure. Bill, love to step back even further and talk a little bit more about you, like how you grew up, where you come from, what got you into being a CPA. Give us a little sense of who you are, sort of outside of what we've talked about so far.
Well, thanks. I'm a Miami native, born in Central Florida, son of a single mom who moved to Miami in early 60s. And so, fairly humble beginnings. My mom was a school teacher, taught second grade for 40 something years. And so, Florida's my home base. And I grew up in a wonderful neighborhood called North Miami Beach, a wonderful middle-class neighborhood. And I went off to school to the University of Florida, and I was kind of lost. And in fact, I was in a fraternity and I didn't really want to talk to anybody. And you had to put your major on your door. So I put poultry science. And nobody came to talk to me about my major. But eventually I wound up in a business school, and I said, well, what's the hardest degree? I figured that would make, that'd be the most challenging and probably pay the most. And everybody told me accounting. So I got an accounting degree, and I went to work for back then it was called a Big 8 firm. And I loved it. It was fascinating. I worked at the biggest companies in Miami. I was auditing in a parking lot. It was for Coca-Cola bottling of Miami, and they ran out of room for me. So they rented my own RV. So I'm like, 21 years old. I got my RV. And one morning there's another RV parked next to me, and I'm having coffee, and Evel Knievel walks out of it. He was doing a promotion we had coffee for like an hour. He was really cool. It's just, different. But I audited the Miami Herald, which was owned by Knight Ridder Publishing back then. I had 100 newspapers, and I got to hobnob with Miami's business elite, which was fantastic. Um, Thereafter, they started pushing me into healthcare, and I didn't really like that. And so I got into real estate, and I've been in commercial real estate most of my life, and still am. And so, I'm a Miami guy, and I don't know. I'm I hate to use the term blessed. I'm blessed. Had a great life.
Any commonality between auditing, accounting, and endurance racing that kind of come to the forefront when I say that?
Auditing is a surprisingly people-oriented task. If it's not detailed, it's first of all, you have to get your numbers from somebody and somewhere, and they're hard to interpret. You need their help. So I was always kind of blown away that I had an incredibly good technical background of numbers and this and that, but people skills is what separates you apart. And so, it's kind of true for triathlon. You could be, I don't know, just going crazy on the data and whatnot. But if nobody gives you some guidance and helps you along the way, you need that interaction. You can't do these races by yourself. You can. I just think it's more rewarding and probably gets you further when you pick the brains of the guy ahead of you, meaning he's been doing it longer or she's been doing it longer. You can do it with a coach, but we just learned so much just being on group rides. You always learn something. Do you know what Morton's neuroma is?
No.
There's like two little bones on the bottom of your feet. It's between, if this was your feet, it's between here, and they press on a nerve, and then it's really painful, but it's not structurally wrong. It just hurts. And so you want to spread your toes apart, and some people cure it with yoga socks. Have you ever heard of that?
Hmm.
Okay, so I think yoga socks look goofy. I don't think you can run in them. So I was at the track one day with a coach and like 10 other people, and I took earplugs and I put them between my toes. It made them feel great. It spreads them apart, and it helped with my Mort's thing. And my coach is looking at me. She goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "Try it." She goes, "Oh my God, this is nice." So there's those little, tricks and hacks along the way that help you, get around.
100%. Excuse me, I'll have to try that. I'm just trying to think of where my earplugs are, but I'll do that for my next run. Um, Changing topics on you a little bit. So one of my endurance leadership principles is adaptability in action, right? The ability to change while in the moment. Can you, any stories come to you when I say adaptability in action when you're thinking about your business ventures or your family ventures or triathlon or endurance?
I can do it for a race, and then I'll think about the part two. You know, when I first started racing, the mindset, was go, go, go. And when things go wrong, either, you're dehydrated or, more particularly with the bike. For me, I've had some bike failures, some chain failures, some flats, and hell, I'm Irish. I mean, we have, there may be a temper in there somewhere, usually not. But, and what I've learned is, that doesn't do you any good. Oh, poor woe is me. I got a bike flat. It's a half Ironman. This is terrible. I'm going to quit. I'm going to cry. No, you adapt and you get over it. And so, you realize this, I want to use a worse word, but I want to say stuff happens. And so triathlon has really taught me to actually be a lot calmer. You can't control everything. You can't control the weather. You can't control the road. You can't control sometimes your nutrition. You make mistakes. And so it has really helped me be adaptable, so to speak. And you're right. It does extend over into business, with the app. I mean, you can't imagine the crazy stuff that happens, at 3 o'clock in India, that affects me and how, the Apple store. I mean, they changed the rules quickly, and we're not a big outfit. And so, it's me and a fella in Atlanta and a couple fellas in India, and we're all good friends. We all Zoom together. but we're up against a big world sometimes, and you just have to roll with the punches and do the best you can. Otherwise, you're going to give yourself a heart attack.
That's very well said. Bill, an audience member wants to get in touch with you. What's the easiest way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. Let's use Bill at myraceday.net.
Fantastic. And again, we'll include those in the show notes. Bill, I've loved this conversation. I could go on and on around Pathetics and the
It's like
group and
not
My
over.
Race Day.
It's not over.
Is there something on the tip of your tongue you'd like to jump into?
This is my second podcast. The first one I ever did, it was over before we started. I couldn't believe how much fun I had and you're a great host, by the way. You make it
Thank you.
easy. Well, I think I told you yours is the first podcast I've ever listened to. I just
you're the one.
I'll say that. It's funny. No, it was really good. It was really peppy. You kept it going.
Well, fantastic. Well, Bill, it's been an honor having you on the show. Audience members, if you got some value out of today, please like the show. Please subscribe to the podcast. Follow Bill. Join Pathetics Facebook group. Download the My Race Day app. It will change the way you race. I could guarantee you that. And Bill, thank you again.
Thank you. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.